Welcome back. Today I will be telling you all another pirate legend tale. The legend of Anne Bonny and Mary Read, two female pirates. The two fiercest, most daring women in the golden age of piracy. Literally has everything. It has cross-dressing to be able to be accepted in a life of piracy. It has two of the most skilled and strong fighters. It has love stories intertwined. It has children born out of wedlock, and it has looting, plundering, and pirating. Between the ages of 1700 to 1725, it is affectionately and flamboyantly known as the Golden Age of Piracy. It is potentially the most romanticized period of pirate history, and there's been many pop culture references to it. I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean being just one of them. Now, the actual reality of being a pirate in these times was very much not romantic. But there was romance involved, so stay to the end of the video to make sure you get the gossip. This time the high seas were led by fearsome male pirates such as Blackbeard and Bartholomew Roberts, who were savage. And when I say savage, I'm talking about men that delighted in the sick nature of torture, rape, pillaging. It was hard times. So why did anyone do it? Well, the thing with pirating was that whilst it wasn't the most lavish lifestyle, you could end up with a big bounty at the end. And then also there was this class indifference where some people like Anne and Mary were literally born in and kind of made in to pirates. Anne Bonny was an Irish woman, and she was of the very few female pirates that existed. So far, two of the great ones have been Irish. So Bonny was born in Ireland around 1700. She then moved to London with her family, and she was about 10 years old when she moved. Now, in 1718, she married a man named James Bonny. Now, with this husband, she moved to the Bahamas, and it was there, well, the Bahamas was known as like a sanctuary for pirates, and in this sanctuary for pirates, she met a lover, Calico Jack Rackham. So not only were they lovers, but she became his pirate partner. So her and Calico Jack are lovers, and Calico Jack even offered her husband James an amount of money to divorce her, and he said no. Refused actually, and threatened to beat Calico Jack. So they ran away together because stuff James, I guess. Now, women were not able to be pirates, or it was not customary. It wasn't a place for a woman back then, right? So she actually disguised herself as a man and became a part of the pirating crew for Calico Jack. Now, at the beginning, it was only her and Jack that knew she was a woman. Now let's talk about Mary's origin story. So Mary Read was born in England in 1685, and she began dressing as a boy as a young age. Now the reason she dressed as a boy as a young child was because her mother urged her to, so she'd be able to receive inheritance, because in England at this time, if you were a woman, you did not receive an inheritance. Anyway, she ended up marrying, and upon her husband's quick death, she moved to the West Indies in 1715. Now, there she met Jack Rackham, Calico Jack. This is where Anne and Mary's stories cross paths. Now, Mary became a part of Calico Jack's team, not team, what's the word? Became a part of his crew. And she went with the same method that Anne did and dressed as a male. So no one on the ship knew that these women were women. Now, both of the women were incredibly good at fighting, drinking, cursing. They fit in very well. And they also were able to pass as male crew members. So they were very well disguised as men. Yeah, and it seemed they really enjoyed the lifestyle. Told you there would be romance in this story. So upon Anne meeting Mary, she fell in love with Mary, as well as being a lover to Jack as well. Now, remember, when Mary first joined this ship, Anne didn't know that she was a woman. She was disguised as a man. So Anne fell in love with him, as she assumed, little to her knowledge, that Mary was a woman. The relationship went on. Now, Mary and Anne are both in the same situation. They both don't know they're women. They're both falling in love with each other. And so for Anne, it just gets to this point where she's like, I need to reveal myself. So she's like, look, Mary. Obviously her name wasn't Mary. I don't even know what her boy name was. Let's say it was Reed, because that was her last name. Look, Reed, like, I'm a woman. And Mary was like, I'm a woman too. And they were like, we're both girls. And we what? Imagine that. So it was obviously obvious to pretty much all of the crew members that they had this attraction to one another. And at first, Jack was very jealous of the attraction between Bonny and Reed. But obviously, realizing that they were both women, he got over it, and he was all for the relationship. So even though they were in a romantic relationship with each other, we're fairly certain that Calico Jack was still involved in the relationship because, well, I'll tell you at a later point in the video why we know that. And there are many good tales about these two women. However, none is more famous than when they defeated Calico Jack. In 1720, Calico Jack's ship was discovered by pirate hunters just off the coast of Port Royal, which I believe is in like just off Jamaica. Now, during the battle, the men, his crew, ran off, like cowered at the fight. They didn't stick up for them. So all these men just like poo their pants and run off. While the two women continued fighting to the death, they were like, we are going down with this ship. Eventually, the women were overpowered, and so Calico Jack, ends up surrendering to the pirate hunters. So they're captured and they're brought abroad and put into cells and basically were sentenced to death. Now, here's the interesting part. Mary and Anne originally were also to be sentenced to death, but they knew a loophole in the law, which was that you cannot imprison or hang a pregnant woman. And they both claimed that they were pregnant. Turns out they both were pregnant. So that's how we know that Jack was actually involved in the relationships between them. Now, they were given a stay from execution until they had given birth. That was I believe the English law. I think that was the English law at the time. Now, we know things obviously didn't end well between Anne and Jack. On the day of Jack's hanging, she uttered the words, "I'm sorry to see you here, but if you had fought like a man, you would not need to have been hanged like a dog." Now, unfortunately, it's not the most happy of endings. While the women weren't able to be hung because they were pregnant, obviously when you're pregnant, you have a high chance of getting ill. Now, Mary Read, pregnant in prison, unfortunately got a really bad fever and died while she was in the cell with Anne. And from everything that evident history shows us, they were lovers and they loved one another, and so that would have been really freaking awful for Anne. Now, we don't know what happened to Anne. She mysteriously disappeared, and we have no record of her death, no record of her capture, no record of her name, her children, anything. Despite their deaths or disappearance in Anne's circumstance, their legacy lived on, and at this golden age of pirating, their stories inspired a wave of female pirates to enter the trade. To this day, they are some of the most famous female pirates to sail the seven seas. Now, there's some questions that one has. Mine being, how did they conceal themselves so well? You know? And historians have also wondered the same. And scholars are uncertain of how the females disguise themselves in such a male-dominated environment. Some scholars have theorized that they wore the wearing of breeches by female pirates may have been a method of hiding their identity. Or just simply like stuff like wearing pants and stuff, you know. I don't know. Like, I guess at that point in time, just like women didn't wear pants. So in the 1700s, like there was a woman named Hannah Snell. She wore pants, and that was enough to hide her identity. She ended up fighting amongst the men in battles, and much later on, as many as like 700 women disguised themselves as men by wearing pants to serve in the American Civil War. So obviously women did not regularly wear pants. It's such a silly little thing, isn't it? But like, we take it for granted today. I myself love a good suit pant. I love a pantsuit. I wear one whenever I can because I feel like it is a power statement. And when you realize that throughout history, all the women needed to do was wear pants to disguise themselves as men, because it was that odd to be wearing pants. I've talked about pants for a long time, but still, it's just, it blows my mind, don't you think? Now, I also want to make some comments on homosexuality in the 1700s. A lot of people like to believe that lesbianism, homosexuality in general just didn't exist before the modern times, which is absolutely incorrect. Let's just look at Rome and Greece for 2 seconds, you know what I mean? It definitely has always existed, but I think it's an interesting time period. Obviously these women were pirates, so they probably didn't give a stuff anyway, but they did portray themselves as men, so they obviously were confined in some ways by the gender stereotypes that were really becoming prevalent in this day and age, especially in England. So in this time, there was a lot of social turmoil. Gender and sexuality and gender roles sort of became very much in focus. Rulers in England, Queen Elizabeth I and whatnot, and then in other areas there were also female rulers, so that was somewhat normal. But yeah, this patriarchal gender role really starts to kind of come into focus at this time. However, when you read about this time period, there actually are quite a fair few different gay or bisexual figures. One being Mary Firth. She was notorious for her bisexuality and cross-dressing. Hortense Mancini. Now, she was the niece of a cardinal being part of the Roman Catholic Church. Despite her marriage and the other lovers that she took, including King Charles II, she had very famous and several love affairs with women, including one as a teenager. She'd wreak havoc in the convent where she'd been sent for safekeeping. The thing about the convent was it was full of women, and she was bisexual. Hortense amused herself at the English court with an affair with Anne, who was the Countess of Sussex, and a relationship culminating in a friendly sword fight in their nightgowns in the public park. Hortense, I like her. I like her a lot. Rumors of her having other affairs with playwrights and things like that. Now, another figure who seems like the most implausible of all is Julie. Now I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Dyangbi, better known as Mademoiselle Marpin. Also bisexual. She, or as it was said, a lover of both men and women. She ran away as a teenager and made a living like busking, sword fighting, like sword fight demonstrations. She broke into a convent. What is with these convents? Anyway, she broke into a convent and liberated her girlfriend from the convent. And she habitually dressed in male clothing without trying to disguise her gender at all. It wasn't about her pretending to be a man. She just chose to wear male clothing, which obviously was not done at the time because of, you know, the pant thing. She then became a famous opera singer, of all things. And she once flirted so scandalously with a woman at a ball that 3 men challenged her to duels over it. So like they literally, 3 guys fought her because she was flirting with their like intended girlfriends or whatever. And she won all 3 fights. Can you believe that? Like, have we heard about these people? No. No, we haven't, because they were probably outcast in the society back then. But hey, now you know. So thank you for listening to this story about pirates and a little touch on lesbianism in the 1700s. If you enjoyed today's story, or you want to support the channel, please click that subscribe button and the bell, which will notify you every time I upload a video, which is quite regularly at the moment. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you on the next video, or on TikTok or on Instagram. Bye guys.